Hello, listeners. Today we are releasing another episode in our series entitled Minting Unicorns, Blockchain, AI, and Dubai, sponsored by the Dubai Department of Economy and Tourism, or DET. Dubai is the new global center of gravity, connecting the world in a way few places can. From flexible regulations to tax incentives, world-class infrastructure to access to global investors managing $1 trillion in investment money, Dubai understands what businesses need to scale fast. Today, we're speaking with Sonia Gokhale, co-founder at VentureSouq, to understand how venture capital is thriving within all that Dubai has to offer. Well, Sonia, thank you for being on the show today. Thank you for being on Code Story.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Absolutely. Before we jump into the ecosystem in Dubai, VentureSouq, and all the great things you're doing through your investment firm, tell me and my audience a little bit about you.
So my name is Sonia Gokhale. I'm a Canadian born and raised. I came out to Dubai in 2011. I'm an actuary. So I was in Canada. I was working in actuarial consulting and then came out here working in actuarial consulting here as well. And then I started working at one of the sovereign wealth funds in Abu Dhabi. After that, I started VentureSouq with my partners. It's myself and three other partners, Sonia Waymuller, Tamara Kadumi, and Sonia Gokhale.
Very cool. That's awesome. So you did a lot of time in being an actuary. Does that mean you studied mathematics in school?
Yes, I did. A lot of math, a lot of statistics, which has really helped me along my way. Because if you actually think about it, I've switched careers a couple times. So I was doing actuarial science. And then when I started working for one of the sovereign wealth funds, I went from doing actuarial consulting to started working on investments. And the way the sovereign wealth funds are, they're very large. And so I had to quickly learn a new skill of learning how to be on the investment side. And the actuarial background was really helpful because I had a lot of the fundamentals that were in there from my studies there, and the mathematical skills you learn, the technical skills you learn as an actuary between modeling and understanding data I used it quite a lot. And then from there, we started VentureSouq. And those skills as an actuary really helped along the way, even just as evaluating companies for investment.
Okay, tell me what you do for fun then. So outside of VentureSouq, outside of professional life, what do you do for fun?
Oh, sure. Dubai is a great place to live. It's a really fun place. I'm here with my husband and my son, my son is 7 years old. Honestly, for fun, it's just spending time with my family and enjoying the beautiful weather in Dubai, hitting the beaches and hitting the pools. So it's a great place to be, and traveling with my family. We're also located really close to so many beautiful locations. So it's very easy for us to travel a lot. So we tend to do that a lot as well.
Oh, that's wonderful. Okay, well, let's jump into the meat of it then. So tell me about VentureSouq, and for those that don't know, tell me what is your thesis as a venture fund, and how it came about.
So VentureSouq is an early stage tech VC based in Dubai. We actually started very early on where we had investing into early stage tech companies. And at the time we started investing, the local ecosystem here in Dubai was very nascent. And there was just not a lot of funding going around. So our early portfolio was actually very global. We invested into companies from the US to Europe and India, and all early stage tech companies. We were very lucky to have a good pipeline of deals. I was invited to Y Combinator, so went to a lot of those demo days, and that was a great deal flow. And so our earlier portfolio was very global in nature. As time went by, our local ecosystem here in the MENA region really started to develop. And a lot of that is due to the government support. So a lot of funding started going towards early stage tech companies, because it became part of the vision for the future for these countries to build tech hubs. And so they put a lot of funding into it, which was phenomenal for our ecosystem, because we see the types of companies that we were seeing 7 years ago versus now. It's wildly different. The founder quality is amazing. At the time, people come to Dubai, they usually come with jobs. So they're either doctors, lawyers, professionals. I came as an actuary. And that's the way it used to work. You come with a visa, you're sponsored, and you get a job. So building a company, coming here and building a company is a new phenomenon that started happening around COVID, where the government started issuing visas for people to come and build companies here. And between the government support of visas, allowing the infrastructure for people to come and build companies here, and then the funding. We've seen a huge change. So now we're seeing people leaving those jobs as a lawyer, to me as leaving as an actuary or consulting or banking to build companies. So the founder quality has increased tenfold. As that evolution started happening in our local ecosystem, we changed focus from global investors to regional investors. We're like, wow, why are we missing out what's going on in our backyard? There's so much happening now. And so in 2021, early 2021, end of 2020, early 2021, we launched the region's first fintech fund. There was a lot of generalists out here. We haven't seen a lot of sector-specific funds at that time. But that's a sign of an evolving ecosystem, because we think there's enough deal flow for us to do just fintech. That means this ecosystem is really thriving. And so that was our first fund. We're going to close our second fund soon, the second fintech fund. Both were institutional funds backed by some of the regional's best investors here. Mubadala, Saudi venture capital company, a lot of large family offices, ADQ Lunate out of Abu Dhabi. So we got support from the UAE and the neighboring countries. Bahrain's sovereign wealth fund also came into the fund as well. And now as things are evolving, we're moving on and we're going to launch a climate fund as well. And the idea, the thesis that we're moving towards is just doing these kind of thematic funds where we've started with fintech, we're going to do climate, and then we're going to keep building our expertise into the next best thing.
I appreciate that overview and the evolution story. I think that paints a picture, and, two fintech funds and then now launching climate tech. So, these thematic funds, but to be able to have the option or the deal flow, like you mentioned, to be able to focus on this specific theme is really interesting. You mentioned that the quality of founders has increased and the deal flow is large and you're able to do these themes, but give me, kind of full answer of what it's like over there to maybe someone that isn't in the space.
We've had a lot of people come in just to check out what's going on. The word that we tend to hear people say, it's very energizing what's happening here. Because if you're in startups and you're coming in from Europe or North America, et cetera, you come here that there's funding, there's like hubs being built, there's people that are collaborating, there's events happening all over in our ecosystem. The government support is amazing. The easing of regulation has been fantastic. Where in other parts of the world, people are really finding it hard to evolve and build tech in a regulatory environment that's not evolving at the same pace as the tech. That has been what people call energizing, because you're like, okay, I can come, like if you think of a digital assets, I can come here and I can work, I can get access to the regulator and speak to them and tell them what I'm trying to build and you collaborate and say, how can we do that in a way that you're comfortable? And fintech, fintech is a very heavily regulated environment. And so for us to be able to say, guys, come here, build here. And then if you want to speak to the regulators, we can help you get to the right regulators and you can speak to them and they will evolve with you and they will take your guidance and they will build regulations with the companies as opposed to putting it down upon them. Regulations are good. They're there for a reason. And the regulators are doing their job to protect their people. But regulation has to move as quickly as the tech is. That part I find is very exciting about being here.
Absolutely. You want to keep pace with innovation of technology and also align that with the regulation of all the myriad of themes, like you mentioned, of all the myriad of themes and the things that you could be investing in. It's a broad startup world out there. Why choose fintech and climate tech, right? Why focus on those specific themes? I know you mentioned digital assets as well, but I'm curious about those two in particular.
In 2020, we took stock of our portfolio, our global portfolio at the time, and thought about what are the themes we're seeing? What are we experts in? And what do we see that's happening regionally here and where we can provide value to companies as investors? Our portfolio was very heavily fintech. And that's mainly because of the background. Our partners are very finance focused. And if you look at our ecosystem here, fintech is one of the first things that you need to build that infrastructure to build a really healthy, good startup ecosystem. And so we're like, okay, let's go in. Let's be we have the expertise. We've seen a lot of these models work in other parts. We invested in LATAM. LATAM, we say it's a very similar market to this MENA region. The LATAM, you have a collection of countries united by culture and language. But if you're in fintech in these countries, you need to be regulated in each one of these countries. Same thing for MENA. So for some of the companies that we invested in last time, we saw how they grew and how they dealt with these kind of challenges and thought, okay, we can help these portfolio companies here do the same thing. And we thought about it. If we were going to do a generalized fund, we probably would be being very heavily in fintech anyways. So let's just focus our attention on this one subsector so we can focus our networks, our ability to value add, our ability to help them grow in that sector. In the ecosystem, we've had a few unicorns come up late last year, this year, and most of them are fintechs, and they're doing very well. But it was the infrastructure we needed. Climate tech, we need to focus on climate tech. This is a major problem. The world is warming. Global warming is an issue. Food security is an issue. What's the best thing to help this? You got to put tech in there to help solve this problem. And one of our partners, Sonia Gokhale, is very passionate about climate and climate tech and making a difference. And so that's why we've decided to focus on those two right now. And then we'll build another fund with another theme that we'll have equally as passion for.
It makes it very clear of where the interesting opportunities are. And it's something that I haven't really heard from a lot of venture capital folks that I've talked to. Dubai is increasingly being seen as a global fintech and climate tech hub, right? Which fits the thematic funds that you've built. Can you tell me how Dubai's ecosystem, how their startup ecosystem supports these sectors and what advantages this offers US-based investors looking to expand into the region?
So what the ecosystem has been doing to help attract people to either come and build companies here or invest in companies here is to make all of this easier. They've developed programs like Hub 71 that will allow companies to come in and they'll give them subsidies on rent. They'll give them golden visas so they don't have to worry about visas, visas can be very costly to an early company. And they'll give them mentorship. They'll help them understand the local ecosystem. So for foreign companies coming in, understanding the idiosyncrasies of this market and this client base, that government support is amazing for companies that are trying to come in and also for investors looking to invest. And we've seen the benefits of that because by getting people to come look at this region, especially global investors, they're filling a gap that doesn't exist right now. Right now, we've got a lot of funds that are focusing on early stage, Series A, Series B. The U.S. investors or the global investors tend to do the later stage deals. And so when a U.S. investor comes here to look at this ecosystem, they see the government support that a lot of these companies are getting. It gives them a bit more comfort when they're investing into these companies.
Excellent. I appreciate that answer. Okay, I'm curious. In Dubai, there are a number of assets that help the businesses that you're investing in, right? There's a number of you mentioned regulations. There's a number of friendly things that you just talked about for people to come and start their business. How does the DIFC, the AI campus, the blockchain center, those things play into what you're able to offer the companies that you invest in?
So Dubai is increasingly becoming a hub for startups and particularly fintech. And a lot of that is at the DIFC and the fintech hive. If you go there and you set up there, it's an amazing place to go and collaborate. So we'll have fintechs that we're all in one place, building and growing companies. Within the financial district, they've set up a fintech hub. They're just sitting there building tech companies to help the financial sector. Everyone's at your disposal. That's an amazing thing when you actually see a financial sector where they're welcoming the tech. They're welcoming the startups. They're welcoming the innovation. They're welcoming the disruption. And they've built it that way. They're like, we're going to build this in the middle of the financial district and we're going to let these guys disrupt everyone. And it is phenomenal.
It really anchors the ecosystem there, another anchor of the ecosystems of startups and the startups that are aligned in fintech and having everything all in that one place, along with the friendly regulations. It just seems like the sweet spot of success there. And, I'm curious for VentureSouq, what percentage of your portfolio is based in MENA, right? I've looked at the website, I flipped through some of the brands, but what percentage is actually MENA based?
Oh, over half. Most of our investments are MENA now because we're so focused on the region. And our institutional funds are all regional based funds.
So I'm curious about an example, right, or story coming out of VentureSouq. Can you give me one of a success story? And how did VentureSouq fuel that success for that company?
So one of my favorite ones, I have a few favorite ones in the portfolio, but they're all amazing. It's like, how do you pick your babies? But the regional buy now, pay later called Tabby, it's doing extremely well. And that has a lot to do with the local ecosystem and the markets in which they're playing. Buy now, pay later globally has hit not the best time, but the local guys have been doing extremely well because of this market. When you think about it, the attitude towards debt in this region is they don't default as much. So you have very low default rates in this region, which is fantastic for a buy now, pay later company. And then on top of that, you have a market with some of the highest GDP per capita in the entire world. So you have a lot of people spending. And that's like a beautiful combination for a buy now, pay later. And they've just really ran with it. They have phenomenal founders that are building that company, and they know retail and the market better than anyone that I know. And they're seeing it grow, and we are expecting to see amazing things coming out of them. They did a massive fundraising round recently with a major global player that valued them as a unicorn and then some. We're excited to see what's next for them.
Congrats on that success and really all of your unicorn successes that you mentioned. I've got one more question for you, Sonia. So, I'm a US-based startup, right? I'm considering Dubai for expansion or for start. What advice do you give someone who is considering coming over and being a part of this ecosystem? What would you tell them?
So if you're a startup and you're looking here, I think it's really important to understand the market, especially your market that you're addressing. This market is not necessarily the same as a US market. For example, their price sensitivities are different here than they are in other markets. Sometimes they're price insensitive here and sometimes they are. So it's really important to understand this market. Understanding the regulation here is very important in getting to the right people for funding. And it's there. So it's accessible to you as a company, but get yourself in front of the right people to get yourself funded here is another thing you should focus on. But it's a great market to be in. There's a lot of government support. There's a lot of people that are working hard to build these tech hubs. And in the past, it's been hard to attract talent here, and that's just no longer the case. It's actually flipped. It's much more easier to attract talent here than it was before. So if you're building a company and you want to attract good talent, put out a job application and say, hey, who wants to work in Dubai? You'll get a lot of people interested. That has been a beautiful kind of switch that we've seen, and mainly after COVID. Because the government had issued quite a lot of work remote visas from here. So people got to see this market, see how great it is, an amazing place to live. And so to attract talent, it's an easy kind of ask where you ask people to come move to Dubai. It's extremely safe. So if you have a family, it's an amazing place to raise a family. You've got the support of these tech hubs that are trying to help and build innovation here. And the greatest thing is that if you're a US investor, and you're looking to invest in this region, because the dirham and the real are fixed to the US dollar, you really can get emerging market type returns in these markets without the FX risk. And that's a good draw for the US investors here.
Well, Sonia, I appreciate you being on the show today, telling me all things about the Dubai startup ecosystem, VentureSouq. You've obviously have a very successful plan laid out to be aligned with these themes in fintech and climate tech. And I can tell very clearly from the actions you're taking as a venture fund of all of the deal flow, of all of the benefits of the regulation and the startup system, and how you see the expansion of the Dubai startup opportunity playing out. So I really appreciate you walking me through that and being on the show today.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
This was a really insightful conversation with Sonia, highlighting the positioning of VentureSouq around all of the growth, talent, and acceleration in the Dubai startup ecosystem. As a reminder, you can check out the resources mentioned during the show by visiting the show notes. There are links to the Dubai Blockchain Center, AI Campus, D33 Economic Agenda, and much more. And thanks again for listening.